Hello, Algebra 2 students. For Bell, we are looking at this hero work joker. The inventor of the throat lotion has died, and then you solve the puzzle. Point slope is what we're working for today. And I want to just take a look at the odd ones. So taking a look at number one, you got to look at this formula. Write this formula down. Write this formula down and use it every time. Every time I'm looking at one of these problems, I'm referring to this formula right here, where I have my x value and my y value and my slope that I'm substituting in. The numbers that you're writing in for each of these are right here. This is, your slope, they give you that. Your x1 and your y1, okay? Sorry, that's an ugly highlighter, but that's what we're doing every single time. We're plugging those numbers in. Okay, so my slope, my m, I plug it in. My first x value, it's minus the first x value, which is 1. Where I only have one x value, by the way, and one y value, by the way, here. So my y goes here, it's plus the y value. So I just work it out. And I end up getting y equals x. Number 3, go ahead, try the evens on your own, make mistakes, we learn from doing so. Take a look at your number 3. My slope goes here. I wrote the formula out on this one. And I ran out of room, so I'm not going to do it again. Minus my x value, which is 2, and adding my y value. So adding a negative is just minus 5. So I do the distributive property 2x, and then 2 times a negative 2 is negative 4, and I bring down my negative 5. I just put these two together, combine like terms, negative 4 minus 5 gives me negative 9. I just bring down everything else, so y equals 2x minus 9. Number 5. Here's my slope, and I'm subtracting a negative 2. Subtracting a negative turns it to positive, and I add my y value, so I added it there. Okay? So then I multiply 2 times x, and I multiply 2 times 2, and I have my 7. We're all good. Combine like terms, there's my equation. 7. Here is my slope. Here is my x value. Minusing a negative turns to plus. And then I'm adding my y, which adding a negative is just minus 7. And so then it works out like this. Number 9. Hopefully you're pausing this as you need it. My slope is 2/3. And then I'm subtracting my x value, adding my y value. Then I just do 2/3 of x is 2/3 x. 2/3 of 7 is just, 7 times 2 is 14 over 3. And then plus this 3. When you do this in your calculator, a negative 14/3 plus 3, you'll get a negative 5/3. That's a 3 there. Okay. So y equals 2/3 x minus 5/3. And then number 11, here's my slope. I plugged it in. I plugged in my x value. I plugged in my y value. Worked it out. Ends up being this big ugly number. So we're all good there. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the backside. Okay, the backside actually is a little bit more complicated because we have to figure out the slope first. And then you take, either of these x, y values would work. On my video from yesterday, you'll see if I chose these as my x and y values and plugged them in, or if I chose these two as my x values and plugged them in, you'll get the same answer. You'll get the same equation because they're on the same line. So you'll get the same linear equation, slope-intercept form. Okay, so here is number 1 figured out. I first figured out the slope, by using, you know, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I label my x1, y1, x2, y2 just to keep it straight, just to keep it in my head straight. So I know I'm taking 4 minus 7 and 2 minus 5. Remember, when you're subtracting by a negative, as we move forward, like at number 3, you'll see it turns it to positive, okay? So pause this as needed. I'm going to move on to number 3. So here's that, you know, I have 11 minus 1, and 3 minus 7 becomes 3 plus 7. So I end up getting 10 over 10, or 1. Okay, and then I plug that in, and I grab my, you know, subtracting a negative becomes positive. And then I add my y, and I'm just using these. I could use these, but I use these. Either one, you're going to end up with y equals x plus 8. Here I labeled my x1, y1, x2, y2, plugged it into the slope formula, and I get -1. I put in my -1, and I grab these two coordinates, and I end up getting x equals negative x, or y equals negative x plus 4. Number 7. This one just becomes a little uglier because you start, you know, working with some fractions. But it works out to y equals 5 halves x plus 1/2. Number 9. Have it all worked out here for you. I found the slope. Slope ends up being negative 12/7. And then working all this out, I end up getting y equals 12/7 x minus 32/7. And number 11. Number 11, you notice that 0, 0, so, you know, my y is 0, 0, so I end up, you know, trying to work this out. 0 times x and 0 times negative is just 0, 0 plus 0, 0, so y ends up equaling 0 there. Okay? All right. Hopefully this all helps, and good luck with the even ones. Go ahead and make mistakes. We learn from them.